My name is Eleanor Thompson. I'm 63 years old, and until last month, I was the head nurse at a long-term care unit in Phoenix, Arizona. I've spent more than 4 decades caring for others. But no one shaped my life more than the boy I raised as my own, my nephew Ethan. He came into my world when I was just 20, fresh out of nursing school, still paying off student loans and figuring out who I was. My older sister, Andrea, had dropped him off for the weekend while she handled some things in Chicago. That weekend turned into a lifetime. She never came back. I still remember standing in the doorway of my tiny apartment, holding a toddler with wide green eyes and chocolate on his cheeks, listening to him cry himself to sleep because his mom never returned. The weight of his small body against mine felt like a vow, one I didn't fully understand, but knew I'd keep. That night, I made a promise to myself and to him that I would never abandon him. Not like that. I didn't have much, but I would give him everything I could. Over the years, that promise shaped every choice I made. I turned down a research fellowship at Stanford. I passed on a position with Doctors Without Borders that would have taken me overseas. I even ended an engagement with a man I truly loved, Thomas, because he didn't want to raise someone else's child. Each sacrifice carved a piece of me away, but I told myself it was worth it for Ethan's smile, for the light in his eyes when he called my name. People always told me I was too soft-hearted, but I never saw it that way. Ethan was my world. When he took his first steps, when he brought home his first spelling test, when he called me Mom by accident in kindergarten, I knew I'd made the right choice. I worked nights so I could be there for him during the day. I gave up holidays so he could have the newest baseball glove or go to science camp. Every time he reached a milestone, I felt like I was winning, too. He was bright, ambitious. I whispered to him every night as I tucked him into bed, "You're going to be someone great one day, and I'll be right there cheering you on." I meant every word, and for a while, I thought he did too. Back then, I believed that love, hard work, and sacrifice would always be enough. I didn't know yet that one day that little boy I raised, who once hugged me tight and called me his hero, would look me in the eyes and call me a burden. Ethan excelled in school. By high school, he was top of his class, captain of the debate team, and headed toward an Ivy League future. I was so proud of him. Every honor he earned felt like a personal victory. When he got into Princeton on a personal scholarship, I celebrated by baking his favorite lemon pie and crying in the kitchen. But the scholarship didn't cover everything. Not housing, not books, not the endless hidden costs of college life. So, I did what I had always done. I worked more. I picked up double shifts. I cut corners on my own needs. I cashed out part of my modest retirement fund just to keep him afloat. I'd lie awake at night, calculating how many extra hours I'd need to cover his meal plan, my fingers tracing the worn edges of my checkbook. 4 years later, when he was accepted into Harvard Law, I knew we were at another crossroads. The tuition was astronomical. Even with loans and aid, there were still gaps. We sat at my kitchen table staring at the faded black and white photo of my parents in front of their farmhouse in Tucson, Arizona. That house had been left to me, my only inheritance. I sold it. The money went straight into a fund for Ethan's living expenses in Boston. I told myself, this is what love looks like. And at the time it felt true. He graduated near the top of his class. I flew out to attend the ceremony, wearing a dress I'd saved for months to buy. When he hugged me afterward, he had tears in his eyes. "Everything I am is because of you, Aunt Eleanor," he whispered. "When I'm established, I promise you'll never have to worry again." His words were a lifeline, a fragile thread I clung to through years of exhaustion and doubt. That moment stayed with me for years. After law school, Ethan married Natalie Park, the daughter of a well-known state senator. She was polished, connected, and came from old money. Their wedding was lavish. Black tie, string quartet, everything I'd only seen in movies. I sat at a distant table at the reception, smiling even as I felt strangely invisible. A few months later, they invited me to move into the guest house on their estate in Scottsdale. "Stop working so hard," Ethan said. "Live with us. Save your money. When you're ready to retire, we'll take care of everything." His voice was smooth, convincing, but there was a flicker in his eyes I couldn't quite read, a hint of something calculated. I wanted to believe him. Still, I kept my nursing job. Part of it was stubbornness, part of it was pride, but mostly, I loved what I did. Over the years, I had developed a reputation for caring for high-profile elderly patients, those who needed more than medical treatment. They needed presence, kindness, dignity. My last patient was Eleanor Blackwell, a reclusive billionaire who had outlived everyone in her family. I became her primary nurse and, over time, her friend. We shared quiet afternoons over tea and chess. She used to say, "You're the only person who sees me, Eleanor. Not my money, me." I never imagined how deeply she meant those words or what they would one day lead to. The spring of 2025, Desert Hope Hospital called me into a meeting. Budget cuts, downsizing. After 45 years of nursing, I was being forced into early retirement. They called it an opportunity, but I knew what it really was. The end of a chapter I hadn't been ready to close. Driving home from the hospital that evening, my hands trembled on the steering wheel. I kept rehearsing the words in my head, how to tell Ethan that I had no savings left, that my pension would be small, that I needed their support now. But we were family. He promised this would be fine. When I walked into their home, Ethan and Natalie were sitting in the kitchen, sipping wine. Their housekeeper was preparing dinner. The twins, off at boarding school in France, were never around. I sat down at the island, trying to keep my voice calm. "Ethan," I began, "I wanted to talk to you. The hospital's making cuts. They're forcing me into early retirement." For a long moment, neither of them said anything. Then Ethan glanced at Natalie. She gave a little nod, like they had already rehearsed this. "That's unfortunate timing," Ethan finally said. "We've been meaning to talk to you about the guest house." My heart thudded. "What about it?" "We're converting it into a home office. I'm about to make partner, and the commute's a nightmare. Plus, with the twins coming home for the summer, we'll need the extra space." His tone was cold, practiced, as if he'd been waiting for this moment to sever the last tie. I blinked, trying to process. "So, you're saying I need to move out?" Natalie set down her glass with a soft click. "We've been covering your living expenses while you insisted on keeping that job. We assumed you were saving for your own place." Saving? I almost laughed on a nurse's salary that went toward healthcare costs, taxes, and occasional gifts for the twins who barely remembered my name. "I don't have savings," I admitted. "I gave it all to support Ethan. Your schooling, your expenses, I sold the house." Ethan cleared his throat and pulled out his phone. "There's a senior living facility about 40 minutes away, very affordable. They even have a work exchange program. Assist in their clinic to offset rent." He slid a glossy brochure across the counter, the smiling faces of seniors mocking my decades of sacrifice. I stared at him. "You want me to live in a retirement home after 45 years in long-term care?" "It's a perfectly reasonable solution," Natalie said. "Many people your age would be grateful." "You've always been practical, Aunt Eleanor," Ethan added. "But financially speaking, you've become a liability." Liability, that was the word he used. A lifetime of love and sacrifice, reduced to a column in their budget. The word burned, a betrayal sharper than any knife, stripping away the illusion of family I'd clung to. "How long do I have?" I asked quietly. 2 days, Ethan said, looking away. "Contractors start Wednesday. I can help you pack." I nodded, numb. I'd imagined a different kind of ending to my working years. Not like this, but as I walked back to the guest house, something shifted inside me. Something hard, clear, and immovable. They thought they were discarding me, but they had no idea what was coming next. I packed my things in silence. The guest house that once felt like a haven now felt cold, like a stage set for a life that had never really been mine. I didn't take much, just a suitcase, my nursing certificates, and an old photo album I'd made for Ethan when he was little. He never took it with him to college. I kept it all these years. I checked into a cheap motel off Route 66. The room smelled like mildew and despair. The wallpaper peeled in the corners, and the bedspread looked older than me. I paid for 2 weeks up front with what little I had left. $600. 0 cents. After that, I didn't know. The first few days I stayed curled up in that bed. I didn't eat much. I kept going over every moment with Ethan and Natalie, trying to find where I'd gone wrong. Was I too giving? Too naive? Had I mistaken obligation for love? I felt hollow, forgotten. And then on the 4th day, my phone rang. It was a law office I didn't recognize. The woman on the line introduced herself gently. Her name was Charlotte Ames, and she represented the estate of Eleanor Blackwell. I sat up straight. "I'm sorry. Eleanor passed?" "Yes, ma'am." "Last week she passed peacefully in her sleep." I felt a sharp pain in my chest. I hadn't even known. The hospital hadn't told me. "But," Charlotte continued, "Miss Blackwell left a will. You were named in it as a primary beneficiary." My throat went dry. "I don't understand why." Charlotte paused. "In her words, for the woman who never asked for anything yet gave everything." The line was quiet for a long moment before she added, "She left you $15 million, 0 cents. Eleanor Thompson, it's already in trust. We'd like you to come in when you're ready." I stared at the ceiling. For the first time in days, I felt air in my lungs, real clear air, like the whole world had tilted back into focus. $15 million, 0 cents, I whispered. "Thank you," then hung up and laughed, the strange cracked sound that turned into tears. They had tossed me aside like old linen, and now the woman everyone else forgot had left me the kind of gift people write novels about. The irony was almost poetic. Ethan's betrayal had pushed me out, only for fate to hand me a fortune he could never touch. Suddenly, I wasn't helpless. I wasn't discarded. I was free. The next morning, I checked out of the motel before sunrise. I didn't tell Ethan. I didn't tell anyone. I packed my things, hailed a cab, and checked into the Ritz-Carlton downtown. It wasn't about luxury. It was about reclaiming something I hadn't felt in years. Dignity. I took long baths. I ordered breakfast in bed. I slept on pillows that didn't smell like bleach. I stood in front of the mirror, tracing the lines on my face. And for the first time in years, I saw not a tired caregiver, but a woman who had survived, who was still standing. And for the first time since being pushed out, I started thinking clearly again. Charlotte, the attorney handling Eleanor's estate, met me for lunch a few days later. She was warm, thoughtful, and treated me with a kind of quiet respect I hadn't felt in years. Over coffee, she said something I'll never forget. "You gave someone their final years with grace. This gift is not just about money. It's a statement. She saw your worth even when your family didn't." That stayed with me. I hired a financial advisor, a former client of Eleanor's named George Talbot. He spoke plainly, didn't try to sell me anything, and didn't flinch when I told him I had zero interest in flashy investments or luxury yachts. "I want peace," I told him, "stability and space to breathe." George helped me map out a modest lifestyle, one where I could live comfortably for the rest of my life and still have enough left to do some good. The idea of that thrilled me more than any cruise or diamond bracelet ever could. For weeks, I searched for a new home. At first, real estate agents showed me mansions, penthouses, modern glass boxes with cold finishes, and rooftop pools, but none of them felt right. Then, on a rainy Thursday afternoon, I found it, a 3-bedroom Craftsman tucked into a quiet street near Desert Ridge. White trim, wide porches, a backyard with old lilac bushes, the kind of house where wind chimes could sing and books could live on windowsills. I bought it the same day. That night, standing in the empty living room, I felt something shift. This house didn't represent escape. It wasn't revenge. It was mine. Fully, freely, entirely mine. I painted the kitchen cabinets yellow. I turned one of the bedrooms into a reading room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. I bought a piano secondhand, slightly out of tune, and started playing again. After 40 years, I learned to cook for one without sadness. I adopted a senior dog named Benny, who snored louder than thunder and followed me from room to room like a shadow. My mornings started with tea by the window. My evenings ended with gratitude. For once, my life wasn't built around someone else's needs. And in that stillness, I discovered something profound. I liked who I was when I wasn't being used. About a month after I moved into my new home, Ethan called. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail, then 2, then 5. His tone shifted from cold politeness to something else entirely, urgency, even panic. Apparently, the media had gotten hold of Eleanor Blackwell's will. The local paper ran a feature, "Reclusive billionaire leaves fortune to longtime nurse." My photo wasn't included, but Ethan knew. Somehow, he always knew when money was involved. He showed up at my door one morning in a tailored suit and a look that tried to mimic concern. "Aunt Eleanor," he began, "I'm so sorry. We never meant to hurt you. We were under stress. Natalie's father had just been diagnosed, and the remodel—" His voice cracked, but his eyes darted, searching for a way to reclaim control, to twist the narrative back in his favor. I held up a hand. "I'm not here to rehash history," I said calmly. "I just want one thing made clear." He blinked. "What's that?" "You will acknowledge in writing that I paid for your college, your law school, and the down payment on your house. I want it notarized." "That's all?" He looked taken aback. "Why does that matter? Because I don't want revisionist history when your children grow up," I said. "I want the truth on paper." It took a few days, but I got the letter, signed, sealed, official. I didn't ask for the house back. I didn't ask for repayment. That wasn't what this was about. It was about dignity, about finally being seen. And I'll admit, there was a moment after he left when I sat on my porch swing and cried, not because I regretted anything, but because I finally accepted that the boy I raised was gone. The man in his place was someone I didn't recognize, and I had to let go of the hope that he'd ever truly come back. But just as one door closed, another opened. It happened on a quiet Sunday afternoon. I was watering the hydrangeas when I heard a small voice call out, "Excuse me, are you Eleanor?" I turned. A girl, maybe 16, stood at the gate, long hair, wide eyes. "I'm Lily," she said. "Ethan's daughter, your granddaughter." My heart thudded. "Yes, sweetheart, I know who you are." She hesitated, then said, "Dad says not to talk to you, but I found the scrapbook, the one you made him, and the letters." She took a deep breath. "I want to know your side." I smiled, blinking back tears. "Then come in, Lily. I've been waiting a long time for someone to ask." Lily started visiting every Sunday. At first, we just sat on the porch and talked. She was bright, too bright to be fooled by shallow luxury. She asked thoughtful questions, listened closely, and sometimes cried when I told her the truth about the sacrifices I had made, the dreams I gave up, the little boy who once called me Mom and then threw me away. "I always thought Dad was different," she admitted one afternoon. "He talks about money like it's everything, but when I found that photo album of you two, the pancakes, the camping trips, I realized he had something real, and he let it rot." I didn't try to defend Ethan. I'd spent years doing that. Instead, I asked about her. Turns out, Lily had been pressured into applying for business school she didn't care about, her dream, to become a nurse, just like me. She'd been volunteering at a hospice center on weekends secretly because her parents believed medicine was beneath their social standing. She showed me a worn notebook filled with notes from her hospice shifts, her handwriting shaky but determined. A mirror of my own passion decades ago. "I want to help people," she whispered. "I want to be someone like you." I felt my throat tighten. It had been so long since anyone looked at me with reverence, not pity. I reached across the table and took her hand. "Then do it," I said. "Don't let anyone talk you out of who you are." A week later, she returned with an acceptance letter to the nursing program at Maricopa Community College. She hadn't told her parents. She didn't need their permission, she just needed support. And I gave it. I paid for her tuition in full, bought her books, got her a little used car in good condition, $8,000, 0 cents. She cried in my arms when I handed her the keys. "You're the only one who's ever believed in me," she said. "No," I corrected her. "You believed in yourself. I just reminded you it was okay to trust that voice inside." So, in the months that followed, Lily bloomed. Her grades were strong, her confidence stronger. She came over often, not just to study, but to laugh, to cook, to sit quietly beside me while we watched the sun set behind the lilac trees. One day, she said something I'll never forget. "You didn't lose your family, Eleanor. You just hadn't found the right branch of it yet." She was right. In Lily, I didn't just find a granddaughter, I found hope. A new chapter, a future that wasn't rooted in pain or debt, but in choice, truth, and the kind of love that asks for nothing but gives everything in return. A year after I was evicted from Ethan's guest house, I stood at the podium of the Blackwell Foundation's annual gala. I never imagined I'd be there, hair done in a soft navy dress, speaking to a crowd of philanthropists, healthcare leaders, and young nurses. But Eleanor's legacy had opened doors. I had been invited to join the foundation's board, where I helped direct millions toward rural health programs and nursing scholarships. That night, I announced the launch of a new initiative, the Eleanor Thompson Fellowship, a scholarship for second career nurses, people who, like me, had cared for others all their lives and finally wanted to make it official. The crowd rose in applause. I saw Lily in the front row, tears shining in her eyes. She had just finished her first semester at Maricopa with top marks. After the gala, she slipped her arm through mine and said, "You know what the best part is? Dad saw the article. He asked why your name was on a scholarship. I told him because she earned it. Then I walked away." She squeezed my hand, her voice fierce with pride, and in that moment I knew she'd carry the strength I'd fought so hard to reclaim. I smiled. Not out of spite, but because I finally felt something settle inside me. Not anger, not bitterness, just peace. Ethan's calls dwindled. His texts stopped. Eventually he faded into the background. No longer the center of my world, just a name in the past. And that, I realized, was the sweetest revenge of all. Because while he tried to erase me, I rebuilt myself. While he threw me out, I built something stronger. I didn't need to expose him. I didn't need to humiliate him. The truth had done that on its own. Quietly, steadily, as it always does. One afternoon, I visited the house I once helped him buy. The lilacs I planted were gone, the porch sagged, the warmth was missing, and I felt nothing. Not sorrow, not nostalgia, just clarity. We think revenge is about making others feel our pain, but real revenge, the kind that changes you, is living so well that their absence becomes a blessing. I didn't just survive being discarded, I transcended it. Now I wake up to birdsong, cook breakfast with Benny snoring at my feet, and look forward to Lily's weekly visits. My hands no longer tremble from stress, but from playing piano again, finding new chords and old keys. To anyone who's ever been used, forgotten, or pushed aside, let my story be a reminder. You are not disposable. And sometimes the ones who cast you out are the ones who free you. That, my friends, is not just survival, it's transformation.